Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. King Charles III crowned King of Britain. Sudan's warring parties meet for direct talks in Saudi Arabia. Pakistan hosts day-long trilateral dialogue with China and Afghanistan in Islamabad. My name is Evelyn Ohiola. We begin in the United Kingdom, where King Charles III was anointed and crowned this afternoon in Britain's biggest ceremonial event for 7 decades, a sumptuous display of pageantry dating back 1,000 years. In front of a congregation of about 100 world leaders and a television audience of millions, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the spiritual leader of the Anglican Church, slowly placed the 360-year-old St. Edward's crown on Charles's head as he sat upon a 14th century throne in Westminster Abbey. Gun salutes were fired at the Tower of London and across the capital, the nation, in Gibraltar, Bermuda, and on ships at sea. During the historic and solemn 2-hour service, which dates back to the time of William the Conqueror in 1066, Charles' second wife, Camilla, was also crowned king. After the service, Charles and Camilla, 75, departed in the 4-ton gold stagecoach built for George III, the last king of Britain's American colonies, to ride to Buckingham Palace in a 1-mile procession of 4,000 military personnel from 39 nations.
God save the King!
Meanwhile, police arrested the leader of the anti-monarchy group Republic hours before King Charles's coronation this morning, taking away from a few hundred protesters who had gathered among the crowds lining the procession route in central London. Republic had said it would mount the biggest protest against the British monarch in modern history. Protesters wore yellow T-shirts to stand out and held up signs saying, "Not my king." They spent most of the service booing or singing songs such as "He is just a normal man." But London police had warned that they would take action if protesters tried to obstruct the enjoyment and celebration of the day, and they formed a ring around the group. Republic said its leader, Graham Smith, had been detained, and a photo posted on Twitter showed him sitting on the ground, surrounded by police officers. In Africa, Sudan's warring parties have met for direct talks in Saudi Arabia as mediators pressed for an end to a conflict that has killed hundreds and sent tens of thousands fleeing. Saudi Arabia and the United States welcomed the start of the pre-negotiation talks this morning in the Saudi coastal city of Jeddah between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF. Numerous truces have been violated since the conflict broke out. The U.S.-Saudi initiative in Jeddah is the first serious attempt to end fighting that has endangered Sudan's fragile transition following years of unrest and uprisings. According to the Sudanese Health Ministry, at least 550 people were killed, including civilians, and more than 4,900 wounded since the conflict erupted in April 15th. Still in Africa, at least 176 people have been killed in flash floods in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, according to regional officials. Torrential rain in South Kivu province caused the river to overflow on Thursday and led to significant damage and loss of lives in the villages of Bushushu and Yamukubi. South Kivu Governor Theo Ngwabija Kase put the death toll at 176 and said that other people were still missing. Meanwhile, a local civil society member, Kasole Martin, said 227 bodies have been found, noting that people are sleeping out in the open as schools and hospitals have been swept away. To the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukraine says it downed a Russian hypersonic missile over the capital, Kyiv, using a newly acquired U.S. Patriot defense system in what will be a first in its ability to intercept one of Moscow's most modern weapons. The Kinzhal missile is one of the latest and most advanced Russian weapons, with the air-launched ballistic missile having a range of up to 1,250 miles and flies at 10 times the speed of sound, making it hard to intercept. Ukrainian Air Force Commander Mykola Oleshchuk said in a Telegram post this morning that the force shot down the unique missile during the nighttime attack on May 4th in the skies of the Kyiv region. Oleshchuk said the Kh-47 was launched by a MiG-31K aircraft from Russian territory and was shot down with a single Patriot missile. It was the first time Ukraine is known to have used the Patriot missile defense system. Similarly, Ukraine has accused Russia of attacking the besieged city of Bakhmut with phosphorus munitions. In drone footage released by Ukraine's military, Bakhmut can be seen ablaze as what appears to be white phosphorus rains down on the city. White phosphorus weapons are not banned, but their use in civilian areas is considered a war crime. Writing on Twitter, Ukraine's defense ministry said the phosphorus attack targeted unoccupied areas of Bakhmut with incendiary ammunition. Kyiv's Special Forces Command added that Moscow's forces continued to destroy the city, but it is however unclear when exactly the alleged attack took place. Russia has been trying to capture Bakhmut for months, despite its questionable strategic value. Western officials have estimated that thousands of Moscow's troops have died in the assault. The Ukrainian military has brushed aside claims by the head of Russia's Wagner mercenary force that he will withdraw its fighters from the battle for the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, saying the mercenaries were holding firm and receiving reinforcements. Ukraine's military made this known yesterday, noting that Wagner fighters were reinforcing positions in Bakhmut with the likely intention to try and seize the destroyed city before Russia marks the Soviet Union's victory in World War II on May 9. In a video statement, Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin said his men had been starved of ammunition by Russia's defense ministry and that he would withdraw his men and expected the Russian army to take their place in Bakhmut by May 10. The announcement said bureaucrats had held back supplies despite knowing that Wagner's target date to capture the city was May 9, when Moscow holds its Victory Day parade. In the Middle East, Iran executed a Swedish-Iranian dissident convicted of leading an Arab separatist group accused of attacks, including one on a military parade in 2018 that killed 25 people. Habib Farajollah Chab was sentenced to death for being corrupt on earth, a capital offense under Iran's strict interpretation of Islamic law. State broadcaster IRIB reported his execution this morning. Iran said in 2020 its security forces arrested Sweden-based Chab in Turkey and took him to Tehran without saying where or how he was captured. Swedish Foreign Minister Tobias Billström reacted with dismay to the execution, saying his government had pleaded with Iran not to carry it out. He stated that the death penalty is an inhumane and irreversible punishment, and Sweden, together with the rest of the EU, condemns its application under all circumstances. In the meantime, Israeli soldiers have shot dead 2 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, and the latest violence that has escalated tensions in the region. The military said it conducted a raid this morning to apprehend individuals suspected of carrying out a shooting attack against Israelis earlier this week. The Palestinian Health Ministry said in a statement that the victims were shot during a raid on the North Shams refugee camp near the city of Tulkarem. The ministry added that both men aged 22 years old died of bullet wounds to their chest, neck, and abdomen. Hamas, which rules the Gaza Strip and has a strong presence in the occupied West Bank, said the men were members of one of the group's branches. You're watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We will be right back after this break.
Mao Zedong at birth, but globally known as Mao Zedong, he was a Chinese revolutionary and founder, People's Republic of China, which he led as chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from 1949 until his death in 1976. He was a communist who believed in the attainment of power by the instrumentality of gun. His wise saying, "Political power grows out of the barrel of gun," formed the major plank of his revolutionary struggle for the control of China. In the long span of his leadership and political power, Mao Zedong relentlessly entrenched the communist philosophy in China, which emphasized the revolutionary struggle of the vast majority of people against the exploiters. Structures. The communist leaders defined the class struggle as people's war. Mao Zedong was a story of grass to grace, having risen from peasantry to preeminent status as China's most respected leader. Western Spring Television identifies Mao Zedong as a major character in history.
Welcome back. Moving on, in Asia, Pakistan is hosting a day-long trilateral dialogue with China and Afghanistan in Islamabad after the arrival of the Chinese and Afghan foreign ministers Qin Gang and Malawi Amir Khan Muttaqi. In addition to attending the 5th round of the trilateral dialogue between the 3 countries today, the 2 foreign ministers will also participate in bilateral discussions with their Pakistani counterpart Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. Mr. Muttaqi, Afghanistan's interim foreign minister, was granted a travel ban exemption by the United Nations Security Council earlier this month, allowing him to travel to Pakistan. He has long been subjected to a travel ban, asset freeze, and arms embargo under UNSC sanctions. The visit to Pakistan by the Afghan minister comes in the same week the UN hosted a conference on Afghanistan in Doha, Qatar, without inviting the country's Taliban rulers. Still in Asia, aftershocks have rattled Japan a day after powerful magnitude 6.5 earthquake left at least 1 person dead and damaged buildings. Japan's Kyodo news agency reported that a 65-year-old man died when he fell from a ladder during the earthquake that hit the central Ishikawa region mid-afternoon on Friday at a depth of 7 miles. According to this country's disaster management agency, approximately 55 aftershocks some of them strong, hit this morning, warning that heavy rain could trigger landslides in affected areas. The agency disclosed that at least 23 people had been injured. Houses and a Shinto shrine were damaged while train services were disrupted, leaving passengers stranded in stations yesterday. Moving on, stuck in Preston Tayyip Erdogan's shadow, opposition leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu believes its time has come to set Turkey on a new path and roll back much of the legacy of the man who has dominated Turkish politics for 2 decades. An alliance of 6 opposition parties named the former civil servant as its candidate to take on Mr. Erdogan in the May 14 elections, which are seen as perhaps the most consequential in the country's modern history. Opinion polls generally show Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu, aged 74, holding an edge and possibly winning a second-round vote after an inclusive campaign promising solutions to a cost-of-living crisis that eroded the president's popularity in recent years. He has pledged a return to orthodox economic policies and the parliamentary system of governance, independence for a judiciary, which critics have accused Mr. Erdogan of using to crack down on dissent. In South America, Paraguay's national police have arrested a far-right candidate who finished third in Sunday's presidential elections following days of protests questioning the legitimacy of the results. The police confirmed the arrest of the lawyer and the politician Paraguayo Cubas Colomas in a social media post yesterday, explaining that Mr. Cubas was being held in preventative detention in compliance with an order from the Attorney General's office. According to the city police commissioner, Gilberto Fleitas, the arrest took place at 4:30 p.m. local time at a hotel in the city of San Lorenzo, just outside the capital, Asunción, adding that Mr. Cubas had been accused of breaching the peace, among other crimes. Mr. Cubas, a former senator and leader of the populist National Crusade Party, received 23% of the vote behind second-place finisher Efrain Alegre with 27.5% and President-elect Santiago Pena, who won with a commanding 43%. But Mr. Cubas has since taken to social media to challenge the results, calling the leaders of Pena's ruling conservative Colorado Party thieves and alleging that the election was marred with fraud. In other news, U.S. President Joe Biden says he's not yet ready to invoke the 14th Amendment to avoid the United States defaulting on its debt as early as June 1. Mr. Biden said in an interview with MSNBC when asked about the possibility of invoking the amendment, he has not gotten there yet. The divided U.S. Congress is running out of time to raise the federal government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling, with the Treasury Department warning it could be unable to pay its bills as soon as June 1st. If Congress fails to act, some legal experts say Biden has another option to avert a crisis by invoking the 14th Amendment of the Constitution to ensure the U.S. can continue to pay its bills. Mr. Biden and top Republicans and Democrats from the U.S. Congress will sit down on Tuesday next week to try to end the 3-month standoff over the federal debt ceiling. In the meantime, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a bill into law that gives a new board it controls the power to void development agreements its predecessor body signed with Disney. This is the latest episode in a feud between the conservative governor and the entertainment giant. Under the bill, which passed the Republican-controlled legislature largely along party lines, the Central Tourism Oversight District Board, whose members are appointed by DeSantis, can cancel any deals signed up to 3 months before the board's creation. DeSantis said at a news conference yesterday the reason why the legislature had to act was basically born out of Disney's arrogance. Still in the U.S., the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, has issued its largest ever award of nearly $279 million to a whistleblower whose information helped the regulator's enforcement action. The regulator did not disclose the case concerned in a statement yesterday. The award is more than double the $114 million that it had issued in October 2020. Payments to whistleblowers are made out of an investor protection fund established by Congress and financed entirely through monetary sanctions paid to the SEC by securities law violators. Awards to whistleblowers can range from 10% to 30% of the money collected when the monetary sanctions exceed $1 million. Now to some sports stories. FIFA President Gianni Infantino has urged Kyrgyzstan to build a national football stadium to host international games and address a lack of infrastructure. The former Soviet Republic has no modern stadiums built to international standards that can host FIFA-level matches, and its national team's FIFA ranking has fluctuated between positions 201 and 75, currently standing at 96th. On the day of Infantino's visit, the mountainous nation of 7 million inaugurated the new FIFA-sponsored headquarters of the Kyrgyz Football Union. It disclosed that he spoke to Kyrgyz President Sadio Japarov about the need for the national stadium of football.
Honor to be here in such, Mr. President. It is really for me a big honor to be here in Astana, in Kazakhstan. It's not the first time I'm in this country, but the first time as FIFA president. Yes. So to meet you in this occasion is really a particular honor. I know that you love football like everyone else in this beautiful country, and I think we can really do great things together. Kazakhstan has become a very important country in the global landscape, not only in the regional landscape, and for FIFA, of course, it is a great partner. So I think on that front we are okay, but we need to work together, President, because there are so many opportunities through football for inclusion, for society, to bring really people together in a country, but also around other countries.
Away from football, the International Golf Federation, IGF, has said Russian and Belarusian athletes can return to competing in international competitions as neutrals. The International Olympic Committee, IOC, sanctioned Russia and its ally Belarus after Moscow invaded Ukraine in February 2022, but in March recommended that their athletes be allowed to return to international competition as neutrals. The field for men's and women's golf at the Olympics consists of 60 players with qualification determined through the Olympic Golf Ranking, OGR. However, there are no Russians or Belarusians in the top 60 of the men's or women's rank INGS. Table tennis, pentathlon, fencing, judo, and taekwondo are among the Olympic sports to have readmitted athletes from the two countries. Now, before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. King Charles III was anointed and crowned this afternoon in Britain's biggest ceremonial event for 7 decades, a sumptuous display of pageantry dating back 1,000 years. Sudan's warring parties have met for direct talks in Saudi Arabia as mediators pressed for an end to a conflict that has killed hundreds and sent tens of thousands fleeing. Pakistan is hosting a day-long trilateral dialogue with China and Afghanistan foreign ministers Qin Gang and Malawi Amir Khan Mutaki in Islamabad. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Evelyn Ohiola. Many thanks for your time.